You know, one of the things that we were discussing when we were outside having coffee, Nizarg and I were talking about the deep mystical nature of looking at formats. And there really isn't anything more mystical than looking at formats, because, of course, it is the one thing that is there to drive the expansion of our consciousness. And to drive the expansion of our consciousness outside of the tribal constraints of the bargain and the rules of and regulations that come with religion and with the tribal glue. In other words, that the expansion of consciousness, something that logic teaches us right away, that the expansion of consciousness is not obviously spiritual. And yet, look at the fifth line of the ninth gate. And the fifth line of the ninth gate, the keynote is faith. It says trust. The detailed adherence will lead to fulfillment, loyalty to the letter of the law, the power to focus and bring value to concentration, like the mystery of God, doubt engendered through the perceived illogic of a process. I mean, built into the logic of this format, its deepest heretical stance is all about getting past the illogic of God. I mean, the tribe's concept of God and the gods is tribal. You know, if you think about the Greek, Roman, Teutonic, Brahmin, you think about all these various gods, and they operate in little tribes. There they all are on Olympus, playing tribal games with each other. I mean, everything about God that we understand it, all of that is tribalism. Nothing but tribalism. So the moment that you get here to the logic system says that there are great laws, enormous laws that transcend the tribal concept of God. Laws that transcend the illogic of belief. Logic's not here to believe. Logic is here to understand. I love that. Understanding. When you break these words, you have this standing under. You want to figure it all out. Logic is like that. Logic wants to be able to take the standing under and put the under the standing and stand on it. This is logic. And then they're comfortable. So in this very format, you have the ability to begin to see that what is so heretical about logic is that logic will shatter tribal belief. And we already know that. Galileo, boom, 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 boom. You cannot do that. Do not use logic to shatter our belief. And every step that science takes through its logic, as it moves into areas that have remained mystery, and where the mystery has been used to the advantage to uplift the tribal faith, you have this intense conflict. Where is heaven? I mean, where the hell is this place? Pardon the expression. Understanding says, look, where is it? Is it in our solar system? Is it someplace in the galaxy? I mean, where's hell? Where is it? Is it really down there? I mean, the understanding system looks at all of that and says, come on. And you have to see that the moment that logic hits the sacral is saying, don't you dare ask those kind of questions. Don't you dare say those kind of things. Just go fuck her. Or raise your children. Or don't pay attention to this. Go make money. Don't threaten our way of life. Don't threaten the simplicity of not having to deal with all of these things. Leave us with just our simple acceptance that we all have the same belief in the same thing, and we really don't know if it's true. So the sacral is always there, and it's always getting in the way. And of course, in order to expand our consciousness, we need to penetrate all the myths. There were many people in my life who would say, who have said to me, but you're demystifying all of these things. It's not true. As a matter of fact, the more you understand the way it works, the more awesome it all is. You begin to hope that there's a maker, because you want to be able to thank somebody for coming up with such an incredible design. The deeper you go into the truth of something, the more magical it becomes. So within the logic process, you have to see there's this deep, deep potential, not for obvious spirituality, but for the expansion of the consciousness. And so often the collective is blamed for being anti-spiritual. They're the ones that get all the heat. The tribal people are all running around with things on and ceremonies and this and that. And, they're all jumping together on various days of the week and, blah, blah, blah. And the collective is simply exploring concepts in the consciousness. The other thing is, logic is vicious, eh? Logic says, prove it. Prove it. The tribe wants no proof. It's afraid of proof. After all, proof can destroy everything. Don't want proof. Logic wants proof. You say to somebody logical, look, bring Jesus into your life. Sure. When and where? What time? In what place? Where are you? Come here. Let me see you. Do something. Let's have some cause and effect. Let's experience phenomena that can be measured. My standing joke when I was a nihilist was, when God flushes the toilet for me, I will accept. Do something concrete. Demonstrate your presence for me. Understanding's like that. Understanding says, yes, 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 very nice. Whenever you read these collective books about mythology, you can hear this underlying logic tone, Well, the reason that this goddess had this kind of value was that, they needed this, and it worked this way and that way. If you love that goddess, you hate that person. Not only do you hate them, you don't trust them, you don't like them, you don't want them in your life, and you don't want them near your kids. It's amazing to me how many well-educated tribal people will put their children in the most parochial of schools to lock them into this tribal mechanism. The collective is very threatening. Logic is deeply threatening. It is life. And at the moment that you see that we are built on a logic framework of cells, that you have to begin to see that only when we fulfill our potential as an understanding creature, and by the way, you'll see we have to fulfill our potential as a mutative creature, as an abstract creature. But in beginning here with the logic, to be able to see that understanding is one of the ways of transcendence. Just as sensing is one of the ways of transcendence. Just as mutation is one of the ways of transcendence. The tribe never transcends. Never. They might get juiced. The old horse cults, you get 25 guys drunk, under a blanket, running around in circles for 4 or 5 hours. They get very high. That's about as close as they get. There's easier ways to get high, but anyway. Being logical, So when you're dealing with this format, the first thing I want you to see is that if the pressure, if you're a parent, you know this. You want your children to be well educated. You do. You want them to be well educated. That understanding is obvious. Now the Sacral Center says, well, to a point. After all, the 2750 is about part of nurturing is educating. And that we know that the 45 that leads the tribe has a great responsibility to educate its tribe. Understanding is essential, but the tribe wants to stop the understanding in the sacral. The only natural flow of energy of the sacral is this way. It is the only natural flow. The moment that you're trying to move from the 9 to the 5, it's like you're fighting in traffic. You're trying to get across this lane. You know what that's like? Go to Los Angeles. Try to cross the street. You know, you take your life in your hands. You know, here's this incredible zzz, and you're trying to, how do I get through? You know, and they're always trying to sort of sneak around so that they can get to the other side. It's not easy. And every time this stillness is ready to understand, the tribe says, yes, good. Understand bonding. Very good. Understand nurturing. Very good. No, I want to go up there. Highway only goes this way. There are no exits. You know. I mean, you got to be an illegal immigrant or a terrorist to get to the other side. You know? Because there's no natural way that you can do that. Remember that the way in which these things work through the sacral is they're grafted onto the sacral. I mean, if you could think about that biologically, these are systems that came later in that sense. They're grafted onto the sacral. There's not this true natural flow. There's this thing that's sort of added on like a parasite. The tribe would love to see the formats as the foundation of parasitism. You know, these horrible things that live on your energy and destroy the tribe itself. Eh? So there's a battle. I mean, this is the whole thing to understand. There is a real battle. That's why if you're not operating correctly, remember, if you have that format energy, just talking about an individual, if you have that format energy, you're a generator. Whatever kind of generator, you're a generator. And to really understand that the only way that you can win the battle of raising your consciousness through understanding is through response. And one of the things about response is that response is built on stillness. When I finished this morning, Gennaro had a really nice insight into that. He talked about how if you're looking at the format energies, they really represent, like people in a race, the silence before the gun is fired. And it's a really good illustration of that. You know, if you think about the 952, this concept of stillness, it's waiting for the gun to be fired. Now you got to be ready. You know, you see them in the track. You know the way they get into their positions and all of that. This is 952 business. You know, you're getting ready. You get yourself set. You're waiting for the gun to fire. This movement to jump across to the 5, you can only do that if you're waiting for the gun to fire. You're a generator. You can't just go there. It's one of the things about understanding. It's why I've taught all along that knowledge is not power. If you seek knowledge for benefit, it brings you nothing. Knowledge in and of itself isn't going to change your life. It isn't. You know, it is only the application of understanding within the logical context that brings any value. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about logical people. That in the end, logic is something that's meant to be experimented in, meant to be established so that it can be reliable for us into the future. And basically what the logic format is trying to do is establish a pattern of developmental logical consciousness. And you can see that it's doing a pretty good job. You know, if you take the amount of education that's available on the planet today relative to, you know, the societies, relative to the fact that if you go back several hundred years, you know, you don't have the kinds of percentages in a society that receive any kind of education. So in that sense, understanding, the collective process of understanding, the expansion of our consciousness is something that's at work. It's at work. And that you can see that the byproduct of this expansion of logical understanding has been at the cost of tribal power. You know, the more we get through correctly to living out this center. Remember, the outside stuff does not really matter until you get this column to work properly. That's why the formats basically are like this, even though you have these outside edges to it. You know, what I originally called the power column. This from the throat down. And to really understand something about this movement to the 5, the moment you get to the 5, you get into a process that will never stop. That's why there's so much resistance from the sacral. Because the moment that you get to the 5, you get to the fixing of a pattern and a ritual. The gates that are at the top of the sacral, that point up to the G center, have the same problem as the gates at the bottom of the sacral pointed down to the root. You know, they're not natural either. They're not. And you see, everything about our spirituality is about transforming the horizontal into the vertical. If you lie down, you have the design of a beast. If you stand up, you have the potential to be transcendent. You know, this is just the way it is. And it is this transcendence that lies in this column. And at the moment that you get into the pattern, the moment you've succeeded in making the jump, is the moment that that pattern has a way of constantly tapping into the sacral. Constantly. Remember, this is the root of cellular design. Constantly can tap in. And once it's there, it's going to stay there. Now, it obviously is there. I mean, you know, I'm trying to give you a very theoretical description of this. The world is filled with formats. The world is filled with channels of being in the flow. I mean, these things are at work. But it's very important to see that if you don't have the 952, you know, in your design, that you could not possibly transcend through understanding without having it in your life. You're going to have to meet it. And whether you meet it in the supermarket or you meet it through your friends or your lovers or whether your children or whatever the case may be, it's all part of this larger living force, the totality. And everything about the totality is that the totality points us towards transcendence. Otherwise, there's no point being here. You know, I don't want to be a cow. I have no interest in you know, chewing my cud all day and lolling. You know, this is not what it's about. We are here to transcend. And what you get to see from the perspective of analysis is that you get to see that everybody carries different elements of all of these things. And that you see that the tribal mechanisms are held together by tribal beings. But you also get to see that even those tribal beings have these collective and individual potentials. And all of this is about the tribe may be what's stable and where we started, but it's only truly seen that way now because of the cycle that we're living in. And that cycle is coming to an end. And this whole business of the transcendence of our consciousness is something that is the final goal in what we're about to do for the next 1,000 years. And that the foundation is being laid for it now. Now. That's why we have the greatest threats in our society. That's why we have the strongest reactionism. That's why we have people that are attracted to primitive processes now. It's why we have this deep conflict between faith and science. We have this deep conflict between the morality of religions and the morality of knowledge. Very different things. I mean, you know, we can clone a human right now. I don't see any reason why not. You know, I mean, for me, that's all part of the plan. But there's all kinds of people based on moral, religious positions that are tribal in their nature that say, no. The 59.6 is not interested in giving up its power to a Petri dish. It isn't. The collective is. The collective says, hey, life's life. I understand. All you have to do is, build cells, get the right thing, put it in there. The 515, this cellular structure. Remember something. The tribe only has ego. Transcendence is about identity. No identity, no transcendence. Identity. The tribe speaks in a language of us. Yeah? And identity is there for us to differentiate. Identity is the thing that gives us our role. It gives us love. It gives us direction. And when you see that the tribe doesn't have a G center, nor does it have a mind, you see right away that it does not have love as a direction. It doesn't. And then you think about all these tribal religions and tribal spirituality, and it's like, wait a minute. Where's the love? It's in the identity. It's not in the ego. The ego says, I will look after you. And look at tribal gods. That's their promise. Take Jesus in your heart, He'll look after you. Pray to Allah, He'll look after you. Pray to Jehovah, He'll look after you. People get down on their knees and say, please, look after me. Identity? Love? That's not part of the tribe. It's not part of tribal spiritualism. It makes them nervous. All this new age, love, and the tribe goes, what do you mean love? All you need is love. The only way is love. If you listen to any of these tribal spiritual forces today, they all have to talk in that language now. It doesn't belong to the tribe. I mean, the only way that you can ever really, really understand love is that you have to be collective. I mean, only the collective knows love. I don't mean to insult tribal people and individuals. I mean, I'm one myself. It's the collective that's here to know love. They go in the 15th gate. They go in the 46th gate. They're an expression of love. They are a direction of love. And the two greatest loves that we can have for our transcendence. The love of the body as temple. And the love of our own species. Of our own kind. Regardless of differentiation. Regardless of differentiation. This is the love that is the identity of the G center. Tribe has nothing to do with that. And that you begin to see that if you're going to raise your consciousness, it begins with love. Now, of course, that sounds really kind of cliched and schmaltzy, because it's the kind of thing that's been said forever. Love your neighbor, love your dog, love God, love. It's like the people you would hear say, do things as yourself, and then they don't tell you what that is. I mean, most people have no idea what love is. They don't. They have no sense of it. After all, if you're thinking about logical love is expressed as a human cell. Now, that does not make the tribe think that that's love. As a matter of fact, when I say that, I can feel the frequency in you. What is he saying that's love? We as beings, are programmed by a neutrino field. Fear. Visceral, physical, body fear. I can follow the neutrino line into space and tell you what quadrant of space that's coming from. I mean, if you want to look at the gates of the spleen and the gates of physical fear, they cross a border between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's a field of stars out there sending neutrino information. Fear's out there. It's not here. Love? Like a compass. You know? The cosmic G center, you know? It's not here. It's not here. Love is moving through us all the time. We can't hold on to it. We can't own it. We can't claim it. We can't say we are it. It is us. We are not it. And if you want to see love concretized, get out a microscope, scrape off a little skin from your finger, and look at one of the cells. You'll see love. See, we don't even know what love means. We don't. We have no idea. You know, we have all of these very mundane concepts about it. I mean, most of you know, I can give you a love course where I can talk about love from every conceivable position. You know? What if you cannot be it? Then the only way that you can taste it is being conscious as it moves through you. Life is love. Life is love. The fact that we want to do all these things with that word and make it all kinds of other things is not the point. A cell is the embodiment of love. A body is the embodiment of love. You know, I'm not talking about our mundane connections to each other and the things we say and the way we describe being flying in space beside each other and being stuck there, and we make up all kinds of descriptions for why we seem to be in the same trajectory at the same time. And of course, the moment that you see that the very concretization of life itself in form is the Holy Grail. This is love. And that transcendence is the recognition through the cell, through every cell, through the body of the perfection of self. The ultimate expression of love is somebody who's correct. It doesn't mean they're loving. It doesn't mean they demonstrate love. It means they are love. It's very different. As a matter of fact, it's so mystical that it's almost impossible to grasp. I know. You know, it's what all the old teachers and masters and gurus try to bring you one way or another to this place of recognizing it. That love is not something that is yours. That love is not something that is the result of. That love is not something you share. You know, we are the expression of love. That's about as mystical as you get. That's all we are. And being the expression of love doesn't mean we understand what we express. Doesn't mean we even know what we express, because most human beings never get to live as themselves. See, I run around saying to everybody, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. I now have that in many languages on my head. You know? Love yourself, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. But you have to see that you are the expression of love. Only when you're correct do you realize how beautiful that is. It has nothing to do with personal stuff. It has nothing to do with this is, you know. It's the byproduct of every breath. It's the perfection. See, everybody thinks life's tough, that it's hard, that it's mean, that it's cruel, that it's this, that it's that. Nobody lives love. And it's not about being nice to your neighbor. I've never met a neighbor I liked. Ever. Ever. I've never been able to love my neighbor. Ever. That's not the movie. But in correctness, you demonstrate the greatest principle of love, which is the perfection of unique, differentiated life. And when you get here to this relationship, the great magic of the 15:5 is that it carries within it every conceivable diversity. I mean, you think about the diversity of life on this planet. I mean, it's really amazing. It's incredible. It is so dense. It is so unbelievable. You got 2.5 million different kinds of beetles. I mean, there is so much diversity. All that diversity is in that channel. All of it. And what that channel really says at the deepest mystical level is, you can never know love. You can be it. You can be it because you can be your particular perfection. And until we're able to map all of that diversity, we do not have a flow. To be in this great flow in which all of humanity shares love. And all that means is that humanity shares a mutual respect for the understanding of difference. The magic of difference. The tribe wants you all to be alike. Dress alike, eat alike, do everything alike. We know that from tribes. Look at any tribal ceremony, and you'll see all these people dressing alike, eating alike. There is no honor in difference. There is alienation, ostracization for difference. But transcendence is rooted in difference. It's my deepest teaching to people that they are unique, that this is the science of differentiation. And only logic can prove it. And that's an expression of love. See, love isn't personal. It's not about the I love you mantras, which have nothing to do... I liked it years ago. Who was that? Woody Allen. He's trying to tell somebody that he loves them, and he says, it's not enough. He says, I love you and love you, and, he's going through all these funny kind of variations. And for me, the funny variations are better than the use of love, I mean, I really zorf you, okay. You can zorf somebody, but love, it's a collective principle. I mean, all you got to do is look at a map. It's a collective principle. It's not personal. Thank you. It isn't. It's just a collective principle. And the collective says, love, we share, let's share. And the way in which you share, and you'll get to see that when you see both sides of the coin, is that the understanding leads you into a recognition of diversification, and experience, the abstract side, teaches you that there is as many paths as there are beings. And all of that goes against the tribe. We can be understood as being unique, and we can each have our own path. Which means that we alone are everything. Within our own authority, within our own lives. We are the only thing that can be holy or not within that context. And the transcendence for us is the experience in the body of being diversified. Being different. I remember one of my first little slogans for design was something different that makes a difference. It's about difference. It's about difference. And you see, the spirituality that has been at work for the last several hundred years, the synthesizers, the ones that came out of the theosophical process and all these various movements. The whole transcendence of that was an understanding that there are as many ways. Think of what the Reformation was like in Europe. This breaking of Catholicism, from this tribal dominance to the phenomena that Gutenberg gave, that, you could have a Bible of your own and interpret it yourself. And all of a sudden you had a unique individual relationship with God. Our consciousness expands the more and more we are the holy instrument. Not them, not it, not the representation of the glue, but the correctness of living out our differentiated process through experience. And then you embody the identity of love. I'm not a lovable person, but I'm correct. And my very correctness, which provides transcendence, brings love into my life. I see it. I smell it. It's there. It's not personal. It isn't the kind of thing that I would associate with a personal experience with another being. It has another quality. And it is this magic that comes to every human being that can experience authority within themselves. The tribe does not give you that authority. They put masters in front of you, priests in front of you, gurus in front of you. All those people in St. Peter's Square in front of you. And the collective, the only thing that allows me to truly embrace the collective as something aesthetically beautiful, is my very recognition that without this combination of the experiment and the experience of uniqueness, there is no transcendence. It's not about the individual that brings the mutative spark. The fact of the matter is that the whole development and expansion of our consciousness is rooted in the collective. And the problem, like all these things that we can discuss in design, is that all these collective beings are running around as not self. And as not self, all of this becomes deeply distorted. And it's simply not understood for what it is. It's not lived out for what it is. When I was doing the Jovian Archive report years ago, I started a process with looking at the various forms, and then I got to looking at cells. I could spend a whole year with great delight doing nothing but describing the 15-5, its lines and its colors. Magic. I will do that one day, as long as I have long enough to live, because it's really magical. In that 15-5 is everything, and so many things that the tribe knows nothing about, that has nothing to do with the physicality of reproduction and communities and all of this stuff. It has nothing to do with the nurturing and the food and blah, blah, blah. In that 15-5 is every mystery of life. Every mystery of life. Magic. And you see, if we are truly going to be transcendent, we need to be able to recognize down to the finest detail the truth of our differentiation. For me, because I do not offer spirituality, I offer mechanisms. For me, it's so clear that the moment that you get to the place where you can transcend the power of conditioning, this is the beginning of the differentiation process. And in that differentiation process, the opportunity for all of us, to finally be able to expand this consciousness field. There are so few examples of uniqueness that express uniqueness that we keep on getting this tribal smear over everything. This is the great gift of the collective. to penetrate. And it can't be done by the logic alone. There is a marriage between the logic and the abstract that is so deep. And if you want to see how deeply linked they are to each other, just read the 63rd and 64th gate. And when you read them and you understand circuitry, it seems like they should be reversed. And they're not. When you get up to the mind, you realize that logic and abstract are the same thing. They just look different in the mirror. You know? They're just another aspect of each other as a mirror. One experiments, one experiences. Each verifies the other. I mean, the mystery of life is to be correct in the form. And to be correct in the form means that you are differentiated, that you operate uniquely, under your own authority. This is transcendent. You know, my role in this life is to be an apostate. You know, I'm the manifester that frees the generator slaves. You know, it's about being an apostate. And one of the things that I really understand is that we have to throw away forever all these homogenized concepts of spirituality and begin to wait and listen to each of the gods of this planet. You see, it's so clear to me that every single being is an embodiment of a holy force. And I say that without being, it's just so obvious. You know, everyone's differentiated. If everyone could live out the perfection of their differentiation, we could all live on Olympus together and play Olympian games. Because that's what it's about. And it's only through the collective that there is the possibility to even recognize this. The tribe doesn't want to see it. And we're dominated by it, by millions and millions of years. This is all new. My teaching, from the very beginning, has always been based on the same thing. If you operate mechanically, the tribe cannot be the only thing in your life. You can never be totally conditioned and lost from the potential for transcendence. You know, operating correctly allows you to fulfill the collective imperative. And the collective imperative is not the same as the genetic, nurturing, reproductive imperative, but it is the imperative that really matters. It's the one that says the only reason you're here is to transcend. You're not here for anything else. You're not. Now, maybe a struggle. You may lose out incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. But in the end, there is nothing else but transcendence, and transcendence is only about you being your own authority. Because you are a unique expression of love. Oh, the collective is beautiful. It really is. When you see it from that level, you can truly understand its magic. To be unique, to operate as a unique entity, to operate under your own authority, this is the expression of love. It's so comfortable when you know somebody's design to suffer them quietly, you know? You can accept people. You can take them in and let them be who they are. And even when you're letting them in to be who they are and they're still not themselves, it's the beginning of a transcendent process in your relationship with them. We all know this. And the moment you get into a situation where you're really dealing with people who are operating as themselves, you can feel the frequency between them. It's not them themselves. It's the in-between, that place between the notes and the fingers. Love is in the air. And it's not about all this flowery stuff, and it's not about all that. It's just there. This is the magic, and you can feel the stillness of those kinds of connections. Doesn't carry all the extraneous baggage. Doesn't carry all the not-self bullshit. And at the moment that beings begin to operate correctly as themselves, it's not that they have to love each other. Just being correct with each other is an expression of love. Only then can we really begin to grasp what love means. And take it away from all this personal stuff that's tribal and sexual. And caught up with all kinds of different things. But to see this transcendence, this magic. I know a lot of sacral to G people. And when I look at them as a group, I think, we're all dependent on them. Now, of course, you can say that about anything in design. We're dependent on all the 10s for their behavior, and the 2838s to force us to fight for what's worthy, and on and on and on. But it's something really essential to understand about these channels that I call tantric. Everybody thought they were sexual. It's about using the power of the sacral to transcend. And we're dependent on our collective to bring us that power of transcendence. It's the collective that has to drive transcendence. And the difficulty you see is that the not-self collective just wants to be a bigger fucking tribe. And that's the problem. They try to homogenize an even larger group. And that's the not-self. And that's what makes the collective so frightening. Any of you that have heard my collective lines for years will know, it's the collective that sterilizes retarded people. It's the collective that gasses people. It's the collective that does all of these things impersonally. This is the not-self. The collective, as not-self, tries to figure out how to bond all that diversity into one homogenized field. What we need is a collective that honors the diversity in an open process where there is no single authority, where the authority is collective, made up of all the unique authorities. It's like being gods, after all. See, that's what we were designed to be. This joke about being created in God's image, it's one of those jokes, Each and every one of us is here to be God. Not the totality business. The unique God. I'm the God Ra. That's my job. As long as I'm living myself, I am my unique, individual, spiritual, mystical source. And I don't give a fuck whether you care, believe, know, understand, like, don't like, And until we all get to be that kind of God, only then are we really going to have fun, Because that's what it's all. And it's going to get interesting. It's not interesting now. It isn't. As a matter of fact, it's tedious. What the collective does is that it gets to a point where it goes to a certain point of consciousness and then it tries to homogenize everybody into that. This is the whole thing. The collective is trapped by the example of the tribe and its success. The collective tries to borrow from the tribe its concepts in order to be able to form a larger tribe to absorb the real tribe. We are not here to compromise. I am not here to compromise. I don't care if you're tribal. That's your business. I'm here to live my authority. And only when we get to that point, only when we are our own authority, only then is transcendence possible. And that transcendence has nothing to do with what you can imagine it's about. That's the real joke. Because it's not the transcendence that the guru wants to teach you. Or the master wants to teach you, or the priest wants to teach you, because that's all tribal. Tribal transcendence is about being fooled. Tribal transcendence is, I can feel the spirit of Jesus. Okay, good. That keeps somebody fixed in the glue. And makes the glue even stronger. That's not what transcendence is about. See, I only know mine. I can't tell you what yours is. It's the thing that's so beautiful for me. If I could tell you what your transcendence was, I'd be so full of it. I have no idea. I can tell you what the not-self game is, but I have no idea what each and every one of you are as a transcendent being and what is possible from you. Don't know. You know, this is the promise of the collective. The promise of the collective is if you really experiment with being unique in your form, you will tell us what that transcendence is. And don't try to make it a generalization for anyone. It's yours. We don't have that courage. We don't. We don't. You know, look at the way you're raised. Look at the families you come into. You know, we're conditioned from the beginning. We're homogenized from the beginning. Spirituality is just pasted on top of us. Uniqueness is something that is more often punished than anything else. To be different is not honored. Ask any teenager. I mean, we're terrified of difference. We don't want to be on the outside. We want to be like everybody else. That's the conditioning. We don't want to be our own God. Geez, that's a lot of responsibility. You know. No. We're still in the sandbox, you know. We're way back in the sandbox. And every single day that I do my job, and every day that I tell people the simple mechanics, I bang myself on the side of the head thinking, just try it. You know? Just try it. You know, if you try it, you see it works, it's okay. And then somewhere down the road, you know, it's really going to surprise you. Because it does. Because that's what it's all about. Each of us have to go through our process. Each of us. You know, it's like John, while he was dying, he asked for them to read the last stages of the cross. And perfect for him, after all. I mean, this man, you know, he suffered a long time towards his death. And, of course, this is very much part of Christian mythology. You know, to be able to suffer for others, to be able to suffer with dignity, to be able to suffer and still care and love and all of that. But you see, when I watch them talk about this and I watch them push this out, this is like this is the homogenized way. Whether or not Jesus, his experience or not, was this or that, the fact of the matter is that was his way. His way. That was his transcendence. I don't need to be nailed on a fucking cross to get it. I mean, that's his trip. And frankly, I don't want to try it either. You know, it's like, okay, you know. But you have to see that what happens to us is that the way in which we've been conditioned is that there are paths that are stated for us. This is the way. And there's no such thing as your way. I mean, you don't want to take my way. You do not want to have the years of my drug experience behind you. Because you'd be buried. You don't want to do it my way. You know? My way is my way. It's not your way. I don't tell anybody, look, this is the way. You know? Strip yourself naked, go live in the hills, you know, eat berries, you know, shoot yourself up full of drugs and wait for the sun to shine. Yeah, it's a great way. Eh? You know? I'll give you the dosages, okay? You know? I'll write it out for you. What a fucking joke. And such an arrogance. You know, it's like the guy who walks across fire and has a Satori. And then turns around and tries to tell all these other people, you do it too. It's really good for you. Right. Sure. You know, your way is your way. And you see, it's very difficult to find that courage. Because the not-self is terrified. Not-self is afraid to be alone. It doesn't want to be alone. You know? Doesn't trust in its uniqueness, in its beauty, in its purpose, in its perfection. It doesn't because it doesn't know it. I understand. I mean, this is the magic of what we do. If you live correctly, you will find ultimately that courage to be your own voice. To be your own expression of whatever transcendence brings. There's so many ways. There is so much to know. There is so much for us to be able to share with each other consciously. Every once in a while, one of my students will give me an insight about a gate. And it's like, wow, isn't that nice? For me. And it's not about, as a teacher, feeling, well, you did a good job. I never would have thought of that. I wouldn't have seen it that way. I'm limited. I have my narrow little fixed trip. After all, I did not invent human design. It was stuffed into me like a pot roast. It's not like I really understand all this. I don't. I don't have notes. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's something in here that seems to know and it babbles on. What I know is what it is to be me. Oh, this I know. I know what it is to be my own authority, and I know where it leads. This is what I truly know. And you see, it's one thing for me to theoretically describe these things to you, but I wait for it experientially to come back to me, so that I can see uniqueness in the flesh of the other. I feel it is frequency because I have 3 open motors. So it's always very clear for me when somebody is becoming less homogenized. And you know how it's clear? There's something about them for me that's uncomfortable. They're really different. I'm a 5'1". I'm deeply suspicious of everything. It's like, is this going to be a good change or a bad change? It's like, there's something going on inside of them. I've lived long enough to see my allies go from this to that. I've seen people transformed in their process and design, and where they go is like, oh, I didn't think they'd go there. It's part of the magic and the beauty. I'm not a master. I'm a third color person. I'm a leader. I'm not a master. I'm just a messenger. I was chosen as a messenger. I just deliver a message. Nothing else. Very unique, very individual. And in that lies a chance for you to break out of that mode. And you've watched me over all these years. I try very hard to separate myself from that tribal process. And to get to a point where it's not be like me. Because that's not the point. It's be like you, and this is what the collective brings us.